Hi, so we are looking for some pokeberries. You can see this time of the year, many of them are ripe. But the ones in the backyard, unfortunately, a lot of the birds have gotten most of the berries. So you can see, like on some of these stems, there's a couple of ripe berries, but some berries are still green. That's what they're gonna look like when they're ripe. Is that sort of bright purple. These ones are probably starting to dry a little bit, but we probably could use those to make some pokeberry ink with. So anyway, I've come out with just a baggie, and I'm just going to get the berries, mostly by the whole bunch if I can. If there's a bunch that's really not very ripe, I might just take the ripe ones and leave the ones that aren't ripe to ripen, and come back. Like I said, the birds have picked some of these berries off already. So this is a really common weed in the area, so you'll find them like often along tree lines and things like that. They were historically used to make ink in the kind of colonial period. People made inks with pokeberries. So just be careful if you're collecting them. They are poisonous, so they're not to be eaten. They should be kept away from animals and pets. You can use scissors. Some people have like a mild reaction. It's nothing like poison ivy or anything like that, but some people have a mild reaction to touching the stem. So if you have very, 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 very sensitive skin, you might want to wear gloves. I've got sensitive skin, but it doesn't bother me at all, so I don't bother with gloves. They might sting your fingers a little bit, but the juice comes out with a little soap and water. You can see we haven't got a great haul from this plant, but we're gonna go on and hopefully find some more ripe ones. So here is the haul we were able to come up with today with pokeberries. You can see there's a fair amount of them in there right now that are green. We've also got some that are starting to dry up. But we do have quite a few nice full ripe ones that we can use for making pokeberry ink. I'm gonna maybe try to go out again tomorrow. You can see it's gonna, when you're working with them, it will stain your fingers a little, but it comes off with soap and water. The next step will be to take this and to bring it back to the studio and to remove the berries from the stems, selecting the ripe berries. I think we'll try to use the ripe ones and the ones that are maybe a little bit past their prime too, because they'll probably still have some juice in them. So we'll take those and then we will take them off their stem, put them in some cheesecloth, and we will squeeze the juice out of them to make our pokeberry ink. So give it a try. Like I said, they are really abundant right now. Maybe you'll have better luck finding some that haven't been eaten by the birds yet. I think the birds are one of the few things that have kind of adapted to these plants in the way so that they can eat them without being sick. So do remember, don't eat the pokeberries. Okay. All right. Bye. Hey guys. So we are. Sorry, I'm showing you my trash can right now, but we are taking pokeberries and making pokeberry ink today. So I just wanted to show you guys what that looks like and how you do it. So we've got a big mess. I think if we did this again, we would probably put down some tarp, because you can see the juice from the pokeberries is very bright and purple. It's going to make a beautiful ink that we can use. We'll come over here and we'll see how to do this. There's a cheesecloth, and inside of that's where the pokeberries are. And you just squeeze it, and it comes out. Inside the cheesecloth, the seeds of the pokeberries will be left behind. And the pokeberry has a poisonous seed, so you want to make sure to really discard of the seeds carefully. You want to make sure to keep the berries away from like pets and kids and stuff like that, but you can see the beautiful kind of ink it's going to make for us here. A bit of a mess follow my example, and or don't follow my example, follow follow my misfortune here, and you know, put down something on your table so that you don't get as much ink on your table in the process of making the pokeberry ink. So we've got a bottle over here, and we're just kind of funneling it in. I would say, I don't know, how many berries would you say that was?
Maybe like 200, 200.
200 berries. We had this container kind of full of them. It was a fair amount of berries, and you can see, you know, just like any kind of juicing, you're going to end up with a lot more solid than you end up with juice. So you got to collect a lot of pokeberries to make that work. We're hoping to fill up the bottle, but it's gonna, you can see it will take us a little while to get there. So I hope you guys give it a try and have some fun making pokeberry ink. When you do make it, you're going to want to put a clove inside of your bottle because it is just a natural material, and it will, you know, go bad if it doesn't have something to help keep it fresh. A clove or some wintergreen oil, either of those will help to keep your berries, your ink fresh. You're going to also want to keep it out of a lot of direct light. The berry juice is, you know, over time it will start to turn brown if the sunlight is on it very much at all. So anyway, hope you'll give it a try. Thanks, bye. All right, guys, so I've got some ink here, and I'm gonna try it out and see what I can do. Let's see kind of how it looks here. One thing that I might try, well, my goal right now in trying out the ink is just to kind of do a sampler and see like what happens when I work with it. So one thing I might do, you know, with just any ink is to try out a wash. So if you put some water on your paper, sorry about bumping the camera there. If you put some water on your paper, I'm just gonna prepare your paper for a wet into wet wash of ink. That's just going to really allow the paper to move, the ink to move across the paper. If I go into my ink with a little bit of water in my brush, I'm also going to dilute my ink. So I'm getting sort of a nice purpley magenta colored wash. I'm just trying to see what's going to happen right now. You can see it's kind of bleeding up. I'm going to see if I can make it lighter as I go up. So I'm going to try to add a little more water in as I go up. And if you're working wet into wet like I was down at the bottom especially, your ink is going to kind of bleed. Or just kind of flow away from the place you put it, following the path of the water. Okay. So I can get a nice sort of gradient with the ink. You know, this might be good as a background that I'm going to create something more detailed on top of. I will say that as long as this is wet, this is not going to be the time to paint onto it with a great deal of detail. So what I need to do before I add any kind of detail with ink is I need to let this layer dry. I could come back to it later if I wanted to add more detail to it. So I'm going to set this aside for now and try something else out. Okay, so I've got another piece of paper here. This paper, I'll be honest, this paper has kind of been in my studio for a little while, and I had a project that I gessoed some paper for, so I think some parts of this paper may have some gesso on them, so some primer, so they might react strangely to some of what I'm trying to do here. So I've got a pen and nib set here. So you can see this is a pen nib set. I've got my smaller pen here. Got my larger pen in the drawer still. So I'm not going to use that right now. But The larger pen would go to fit like other nibs like this. Ooh. That would give you a wide shape. The smaller nib just fits the smaller tools. I don't know if you can see this. I'm going to see if I can see it on the camera. The way that these work is the tip has usually like a small slit in it that the ink flows up into, and when you sort of apply pressure on your paper, that opens that opening and allows the ink to flow onto your page. So I am not a calligraphy expert by any shape of the imagination. I am a novice with pen and ink, so really just know that this is just me giving it a try and seeing what it does with the material. So I'm going to dip my pen down into my ink and kind of fill up the well a little bit where the pieces of metal split and see what I can get. Okay, that's working. So with every stroke in calligraphy, you typically want to go back and refill your brush. Got some residue there that time I had to wipe off. You know, I really, as I do this, I think about those people in the past who really, this was their methodology for writing something out. All of the sort of great works of literature and, you know, things like the Declaration of Independence and things that were written in this manner. Not even like with a metal pen like I have here, but like with maybe a feather, like a quill pen. Just the time it must have taken to have to dip and dip and dip and dip. How different that is from composing something on a computer. You have to kind of be deliberate about the direction that you're moving your pen in. It takes some practice. People, like way back in time when people used to copy manuscripts by hand in monasteries, illuminated manuscripts, usually like copies of sacred texts like the Bible and things like that that were really important. They would study under a master and apprentice for a long time to just be able to write beautifully. You can see that I am very much in need of a master at this point. I'm just trying to, in my mind, break the letters down into strokes. Like if the shape of the R, for instance, I can break that down into 2 strokes. So, anyway, you can draw with this tool as well. It's not like a normal pen. Like, it matters which way, you move to get the ink to come out. So, anyway, I'm trying to make something more freeform over here. The nib has never been my most favorite drawing implement. I'm just trying to make something kind of branching and flowery looking. I don't know. I think there's something of the way that it scratches the paper that kind of, I don't know, just is not to my liking, you know, just in terms of the sensation. But anyway, it's worth giving it a try. Just, if nothing else, like, just one of the things that art can do is connect us with like history of people who have been gone for a very long time, just to connect yourself to like people who used to write like this. What would that have been like, you know? Maybe you can understand a little bit more once you've tried it yourself. I like working more with a brush, so I'm going to try doing some like dry brushing on this dry paper, which is going to be different than the wet into wet technique I used before. So let's give it a try. My dog is crying in the background. If you hear that, that's my dog crying. Okay. It's also telling me my phone has a low battery, so I'm going to have to make this quick. All right. I'm going to try maybe to remember what those berries that I picked earlier looked like. I feel like they grew around the sort of purple branch. Central branch, like almost like a berry corn cob. That's in my mind like kind of how it looked. If you remember what, well, for you, this will have just happened a very short time ago in the video, so you won't have to remember as hard as I'm having to remember. I did it earlier in the day, but the berries maybe kind of looked like something like that. The leaf. Maybe I want some lighter color within this. I'm gonna get a little water in my brush. You can make, you can mix up different versions of a color so that you have some light and dark. Just by adding a little tiny bit of ink to water, you can get a very light version of it. So, you know, for something like this where I'm just like really playing around and seeing what the material will do, you know, I don't have much of an aim in terms of what I'm trying to make. I might just try really experimenting with what kind of lines, what kind of marks I can get. If you look at sketchbooks, you know, of any artist you admire, I'm sure you will see pages full of stuff like this, because art takes a lot of experimentation and trial and error and all kinds of things before you can get something that really works. So try some dry brush, see what that would look like. Let's scratch here. Okay. So there's just really quickly, you know, some rough things that you can try out with your ink, including wash. So it's starting to dry a little bit. Again, I'd need it to be, it's still, you can tell with paint like this, like if you kind of just lightly put your hand over it, if it still feels cool, it's still wet. So if it feels cool, it's too wet, let it sit a little longer. This is gonna have to sit for, you know, maybe another half an hour, and then I could paint into it. So you can make a wash using the wet into wet technique to kind of get gradients. You can use nibs. You can use brushes to get different kinds of marks. You can use like a different amounts of ink in the brush to get dry brush and other different types of marks. Really, you know, I encourage you to try out a couple different mark making tools, a couple different brushes, and just play and see what you can get out of your materials, okay? this is a great way to get to know them before you try to make a more finished work with them. So give it a try, see what you can come up with. This, you know, can lead to more developed work down the road. You just kind of have to see with your own hands what you can get to happen when you start to use the tools and materials. All right, well, enjoy using some ink today. I will look forward to seeing what you come up with.